Good morning. This is Debby Montgomery Johnson, and this show, Defining Moments. This is not Defining Moments. That was my other show. This is Stand Up and Speak Up. It's about each and every one of us being able to stand up and speak up. Many of us have something we're hiding, something we may be ashamed of, something that through no fault of our own or through our own making we keep hidden, and that in turn keeps us hidden from others and the world. Good people go through terrible situations. Wise people know when and how to let it go. Everything that happens to us helps us grow. While it may hurt to see it right away, the most important thing to do is to change your perceptions about your circumstances. Stand Up and Speak Up features ordinary people who've been through extraordinary struggles and found the courage to step out behind their smiles and speak up about their experiences and the lessons gleaned from those experiences. We are dedicated to encouraging you to remove the mask of embarrassment and shame and to putting an end to victimization. Let's stand up and become the victor, not the victim. Let's be awesome, not angry, and let's acknowledge what happened and forgive ourselves first and then move on with power. Well, hello, everybody. It is sometime in some place, and it's funny with this coronavirus and everybody sheltered at home, we tend to forget what day it is, but I know today's Thursday because we do our show on Thursdays, and I'm so excited to be here today because I have a guest, a friend of mine from Canada, and her name is Barbara Ellison, and Barbara and I have some exciting things to talk about because she actually did a personality assessment of me, and it was dead on. But before we do that, I want to welcome Barbara to our show and say hi from South Florida to Canada. You there?
Well, I am here. I am originally Canadian. However, I do live near Chicago now.
Oh, there you go. So you didn't need the Canadian number.
And I am just got married from my first husband, and we moved here and love it. But I'm still Canadian. There have been times in the past where I was like, oh, people have said to me, well, you've lived here, your kids are here, you're not going to go. And I'm like, yeah, no, I'm Canadian. So I'm an alien, so I get teased constantly because I have a green card, and I am an alien resident. So I get teased about that.
Well, it's funny because I can hear it in your voice. There are some things that my Canadian friends say, and it's usually the word out.
The out and about, and certain names.
There you go. Well, I have a short bio for you, and I'm going to read it to everybody so they hear it. It says, as a woman who has been divorced, widowed, bankrupted, and a PTSD survivor, Barbara Ellison knows the value of happiness. Barbara is a certified personality science trainer, a master facilitator, supports the Patreon Project, and she's a member of the World Happiness Foundation and a happiness coach. She's on a mission to elevate the world happiness statistics, making family and business connections, communication, and having fun be the norm, not the exception. Boy, do we need that today.
Yeah, and that is absolutely the truth. And I'm going to share one startling statistic with you. And it's kind of the umbrella right now, a little bit of the direction that I'm going forward, is that 3,000 teenagers attempt suicide every day in this country.
That doesn't surprise me right now because I've worked with the 211 helpline, and in this environment, that's huge. So give us a little bit of insight about that right now, and what's going on in their minds, or what are they not happy? Is it not a matter of happiness?
Well, some of it is that they don't know how to be happy, and like some of the research that I've done, what they're saying is that they don't feel like they're being heard. They don't feel like they are being accepted for who they are. And they don't feel like they have value with it, that they're different in the family. And when I started reading that kind of stuff, I was like, oh, I can relate to that. Because in the personality codes, which we're going to talk about a little bit, I came from what we call a blueprint family, a very traditional kind of inside the box. We were very structured. Like my mom did certain things on certain days. And I mean, part of that was environment and the way she was brought up. Absolutely. I was the odd duck. Just never felt like I was quite part of the group and never knew why, of course. I just always knew that I was just slightly different. And then when I got into personality science several years ago, and I did all my sisters, and my one sister finally said to me, she said, this really makes sense. She said, Barb, you always were slightly different than the rest of us, because I was totally the opposite personality code in the bank code. And it was like, oh, that's why. I was the nurturer action type of person, which we're going to be talking about. So it was just fun to hear it from my oldest sister.
Where are you in the lineup in kids and siblings?
I'm number 3. I'm number 3 of 4 girls. Girls. And just so it was just really different. And yet at the time, I mean, you adapt because you're part of your family. But that little is what's happening now, but so much more because you're adding in bullying. You're adding in the fact that you're stuck at home, so there's no break. The social media pressure to conform, to be a certain way, to be popular, all of those things. I think that adds to all the pressure that are on the teenagers. And the biggest group is the 10 to 24-year-olds. I can't imagine a 10-year-old even knowing what the word suicide means, and yet they have.
It's getting younger and younger. It's unfortunate. Do you think part of it's because we feel like we're connected, worldwide here, Europe and Chicago. I'm in Florida, and we're connected via the internet, connected on phones, but we're not really connected in person. Does that have any? That's got to have a bearing on it.
I think that is very true too, because part of being in person is personality. And one of the things that I share with people is that there's over 7 billion people on the planet. There's over 6,500 languages. However, there is 4 basic personality types. And I think everybody, I mean, you and I have talked about it. There are so many personality evaluations, assessments. There's DISC, and there's several different kinds of DISC. There is Briggs, Myers-Briggs. There's the Strength Finders. There's the one with the animals, and there's the one with the like the water and the elements of the. So they're all personality codes, because personality has been around for 2,500 years. Mm-hmm. It was back in Hippocrates was the one that first, and he called them the 4 temperaments. And so, he's the one that developed the Hippocratic Oath, the father of modern medicine. And so it's been around for so many years. And people over the years have developed. And one of the things, last week I had the privilege of doing a presentation to a meetup group. And we were talking about that there are 4 learning styles, the auditory, visual, those kinds of things. There's 4 stages of learning, and there's 4 personality codes. There's 24 different combinations, absolutely, because we are a bit of each one of the codes. We're one of each one of the personality styles, but there are the basic ones that we tend to be predominantly one dominant one. But so what happens is, so say you have a family that, 3 or 4 of them, say you have a family of 4, and 3 of them are one personality code, and the other one is the odd duck. Okay, if there's no way to connect, it's like how often have you, and I can remember saying this as a parent, and I cringe when I think back to being a parent, because my youngest son was totally a Blueprint family, very traditional. He liked, and we're going to talk about the different, how to recognize them. I was the spontaneous one. Well, Blueprint ones, they like plans, and they don't like to have their plans changed. So consequently, it's like, Malcolm, what's wrong with you? Because let's just go do this. And he just didn't react to that well. And now that I know that about him, it has totally changed our relationship, because now I plan things with him way in advance, give him lots of notice. He clears his schedule for me. So consequently, my quality time with him is so much more effective than it ever was before when I would spring things on him.
Interesting. Well, you know what? This is really, I know what you're talking about. Let's jump right into it and tell us what the bank code is and how you got into it. And the assessment, now, there's a free assessment that you can go to. Go ahead and tell them to do that. Maybe they can do that while we're talking.
While we're talking, yes. Go to the free assessment, and it's the bit.ly, so it's a bit.ly, /barb code, and the barb has a capital B. And so when you go into that it's a free assessment. It will say that, it's a $97 value, which it is. And even that is really cheap to have a personality assessment done. A lot of the companies charge a lot more, and they take so much more time. This one is going to take you less than 2 minutes, probably 90 seconds or less.
And I found that there's a tab on the right-hand side that says
crack the code.
Crack the code. Yeah, click on crack the code.
Crack your code. And then what you're going to do is you're going to read the information on each one of the cards. There's 4 colored cards. You're going to read the information, and then you are going to put those cards into your order of choice, with the one that is the most like you on the left or the top, whichever way your screen is, and then to the least on the right or on the bottom. And so the 1, 2, 3, and 4 is that, and they move. So just put them in the right order, and then you're going to put in your information. And once you put in your information and hit submit, you're going to get a free report, and that usually comes within a couple of very, very short time. Mine came pretty quickly. Yeah, it's pretty quick, and it'll come right away, and then it will tell you what your bank code is. And why we call it bank. The bank stands for Blueprint, which we're going to talk about. The A is the action personality. The N is for nurturing, and the K is for knowledge. So what I'm going to do right now is just tell you a little bit about each one of the codes, and then as you're hearing them, you might be saying, "Oh yeah, that's me," or you're going to be saying, "Oh yeah, that's somebody else in your family." So the Blueprint people, they value structure and following the rules and planning. They like discounts, and they like making lists. They don't like clutter, and they don't like being late. And Blueprint people, they tend to become teachers, they become accountants, they become police officers. And a clue that you could to how to recognize a Blueprint in somebody else is that they tend to be very conservative. They drive economy cars with high safety ratings because it's all about safety. And a relationship tip for a Blueprint person is to plan things well in advance. That's what they like. Okay, so that's Blueprint. And we talk about them as being inside the box. They're traditional, and they like it, and we need the traditionals. But then you have the action people. They are the ones that are absolutely outside of the box, because they value spontaneity, and they want to have fun, and they like to win. They like having designer brands, and they like to be recognized.
Is this you?
They don't. Well, a little bit. That's my second code, absolutely.
Gotcha.
Yeah, that's my second code, and it's high. It's the second code. But they don't like schedules, and they definitely don't like having a boss. They tend to become salespeople, speakers, speakers, entrepreneurs, because that's, they're the more smart. They're the Steve Jobses of the world. They tend to be visionaries. And a clue to recognize them is that lots of times they're fashionably late, and they like flashy bling kinds of things. And so a tip to be in relationship with an action person is be prepared to do something at the last minute. Just put on your shoes and go. That's what they like. Okay. So then you get the nurturers. And the nurturers, we value being part of a community. We want people that are authentic, that to live in harmony with each other. We like eye contact, and we love being out in nature and having fresh flowers around us. We don't like feeling left out, and we definitely don't like doing the wrong thing. We tend to be nurses, caregivers. We work with nonprofits. And a clue to recognize nurturers is that they love to give hugs. And they're always so helpful. And a tip to deal with a nurturing style is to remember big events like the anniversaries and the birthdays, because they want to be part of a team. And that's my big personality code, is that I am a nurturer. I want everybody to get along. I want to bring everybody together. I want to make a difference in the world.
That's why we connect so well.
That's why we connect so well. Exactly. Because you tend to gravitate to the people that are like you.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, though, you can't only be with the people that are like you.
Well, let's get through the last one, and then we'll decide, in marriage, too, what we did.
In marriage, too, okay? So the fourth one, they are the knowledge people, and they value science and logic and technology, and they love charts and graphs and maps and the latest gadgets. What they don't like is they don't like drama, they don't like networking, and they don't like people who take shortcuts. They tend to be engineers, scientists, programmers, and a clue to recognize them is they tend to drive high-performance or electric cars. They're a bit of a wallflower, tend to be quiet, and they reserve. But a tip to deal with them is to find something that you can do together and learn something new together. And that's how you can connect with them. So like we talked about the box analogy, okay, the blueprints, they're the ones that are inside the box. The action people, they're the ones that are outside of the box. The nurturers, we want to recycle the box. But the engineer, the knowledge people, they want to know how the box was engineered.
Mm. Very interesting, and I'm just laughing as I think of myself and people that are in my circle right now and where they fit, and it gives you an idea of, we're going to learn how do you communicate with them, how do you deal with them, but it just made me laugh because so many people come to mind.
Oh, can I share you? This is a fun story from my husband and I.
Sure.
Before, he passed away, but when we first got married, we were going on a trip. We had talked about that we were going to fly into LA, and we were going to drive across the desert, because he had never done that, and arrive in Las Vegas at night so that he could see the full panorama of Las Vegas at night. So this was the trip, and that was the kind of what we were talking about. Anyway, so I came home one day, and I said, "Honey, what are you doing?" He was sitting on the floor in our living room, surrounded by maps and atlases. And I said, "Honey, what are you doing?" And he said, "Well, I'm planning our trip." And I'm like, "What trip?" thinking he's taking me somewhere this weekend. He went, the trip we're going on, the one that we're going to fly into L.A., and we're going to drive across the desert, and we're going to, get to Las Vegas at night. And I went, David, we're doing that in November. This is August. What are you doing?
It's never too early.
The funny part was that he looked up at me in total seriousness, because remember, he's sitting on the floor. He looks up at me and he said, well, honey, when are you going to decide the route that we are going to take when we go from L.A. to Las Vegas? I said, David, when I get in the rental car in L.A.
You drive me crazy.
Funny, right, exactly. And that's what happens to people. So that was a funny instance, and we laughed about that every time we went on a trip. We laughed about that because it became just such a fun memory, and just for years and years and years. And we were together 20 years before he passed away. So for all those years, we laughed about that because it became funny. But you know what? Do you think that scenario played out in other parts of our marriage?
Well, I'm just thinking that, to have a bank code assessment before you get married would be a really interesting thing, and probably something that all marriage counselors ought to be giving. Not to keep you from going to that person, but just to make you aware of that's the way they are.
Right, because how often have we heard in marriages that for the first 3, 4, 5 years everything was hunky-dory, because everybody was on their best behavior and everybody was trying to be the best for the all of it. They call it the 7-year itch.
7-year itch.
All of a sudden, the very thing that attracted me to that person is the very thing that's driving me around the bend. Like for the blueprint, say a blueprint is married to an action person. The action person is saying to the blueprint, you are so boring. Why can't we do something spontaneous? My husband was a knowledge blueprint. I am an action. I'm a nurturing action. So my spontaneous, let's help everybody, clashed violently sometimes, not violently physically, but violently verbally, sometimes with his blueprint knowledge that, because the knowledge people, they are so smart, they are so, that they know so much that they tend to come across as being a little bit arrogant. That, well, why don't you know what I know? And it was like, and once in a while it would be, David, soften your tone.
Well, I was married to one of those too, and it was really funny because I'm obviously a nurturer, and I like order. And Lou was so brilliant that sometimes though I backed off, but I'm like, well, don't make me feel silly or stupid, because I'm certainly not. But I always tease, because he's passed away too. I used to tease. I said, either you love him or you hate him. There's very little in between in those personalities.
Yep.
And that's tough.
And it's like once in a while, like I said with my son, my youngest son, he is totally a blueprint. And when I did his personality code, we were sitting in a restaurant, and there was 3 or 4 of us at the table, and he was like, oh, this is totally me. This is totally me. And he kept reading, this is totally me. And one of the things, so now when I want to see him, like right now it's COVID, so we can't, but when I want to see him, honey, Malcolm, do you want to do breakfast or lunch on Saturday or Sunday? Send it off. Send him a text.
Give him choices, but let him plan it, right?
But let him plan it. So then he would text me back, okay, then we'll do Saturday. Fine, great. Saturday, we'll do breakfast. Okay, what time and where? And then it would go. So this would take all week. But by the time Saturday came, the last time we were together, just before the COVID hit, we got to the restaurant at I think probably 10 to 9 because blueprints are early. So make sure you're always early, and early to them is 15 minutes at least. On time is if you get there 5 minutes beforehand, and if you are there at the time that you say you're late. Yeah. Remember that about blueprints. So I got there. I think I was there at 10 to 9. We were still there at 10 after 12 because he had totally cleared the whole morning for mom time, rather than me springing something on him at the last minute and going, well, what do you mean you've only got 20 minutes? Well, Mom, I've got plans. So now it has just made such a difference and he's an adult child. So he's my son. He's in his 40s. But can you imagine if you have a young child that doesn't feel that part of them is being understood? Like whether it's a spontaneous person, like one of the girls in our group, she was a twin. Her twin was a blueprint. She was a high action. They never, ever, ever got along. Never until they did the personality. And they looked at each other and went, no wonder we didn't get along. And now they have absolutely an amazing relationship because now they're willing to work with each other. Oh, that's why you do that. Oh, that's why you do that.
I'm just sitting here, and in my mind, all the my kids, my grandkids, my daughter's dating somebody now, and there's some moments when she gets really frustrated. He's an engineer, and he doesn't like to talk about planning, and she's a planner because she's a school teacher. Okay, so guys, you got to talk these things out. And here's the tip: don't do it via text. Do it in person.
Right. Do the code. And that's one of the things that I'm having families do now. Hey, you know what? Do me a favor. And exactly what I said to you at the beginning to crack their code. Look at the information on these cards. Put them in the order that you want to put them in, because then we're going to be able to talk about what our differences are and what our similarities are and how we are going to move forward. And I do that with families now, and it has just been like, you see the light bulbs go on.
Be interesting with a lot of families, going through divorces too. It might be something that would be, good for a facilitator or mediator to say, hey, let's do this assessment. Of course, it might be too far into it.
Right.
I
mean, I'm looking to get it before it gets to that point.
Exactly.
Get them before it gets to that point.
I'm looking at, Lou and I were married 26 years before he passed away, but there were times when I was like, oh, wow, we really need to be talking about this. And the last one that you did mention here with the knowledge person, which Lou was, he goes, learn something new together. And, after being married for 25 years, when the kids are already out of the house and you've done all those things, you're basically two people rooming in the same house sometimes.
Right.
And you have to learn something new together or the relationship's not going to stick.
Exactly. And the things that David and I, we kind of grew into it. I wish I had the personality science back then. It would have made my life so much easier because he would have understood me. I came to appreciate the planning part of him, and he came to appreciate the spontaneous part of me. So we kind of, we would plan things, but then we would do some. He would leave. How he handled it was he would leave where he wouldn't make a plan for 4 hours. So, hey, we have 4 hours. What do you want to do? And that was kind of his concession to me being spontaneous, and it was.
But then, did you, as a nurturer, did you turn around and say, "Oh, well, let's do what you'd like to do"? I do that all the time. When CJ goes, "What would you like to do?" I'm like, "Whatever you want."
Yeah, exactly. Because we are the nurturers. We want everybody to be happy, and we want everybody to get along. Exactly.
But I'm the one that took us skydiving, so.
Yeah, and that's David and I. There were a couple of things that we went, we would go hiking, and that wasn't something that he wasn't, he liked to walk, but to go something really different. And like we went hiking and we went to all sorts of, fun places because it was like, really? You want to do that? Yes. Okay. And then once we were there, he would get into it, but not something that he would have done on his own.
Well, sometimes you have to be uncomfortable trying to get comfortable, or be comfortable being uncomfortable. Just to, nurturers, I think, do that too because you want to include everybody and you want to be included in what they're doing. So as long as it's not detrimental to their health, it should be fine.
Exactly.
So you had mentioned to me at one point there was something about a 5-point method to getting your happy back. How does that work?
Yeah.
Is that part of the code, or is that something different?
No, that has been my journey. When David died, I was 61, and I was just absolutely, I now know that I was absolutely in the widow's fog. I don't remember the first year or so after David died, which is very common and very normal that you don't do that. But I can tell you the day I woke up, and it was like, okay, David has died. I have not. I have longevity in my family. In fact, my father, he was not quite 102 when he passed away. My mom was my mom was 94. I said, okay, here I am. I'm 61 years old. I have potentially 40, years ahead of me. What am I going to do? And right at that moment, I knew that I was going to be able to laugh again. I knew I was going to be able to smile again, and I knew I was going to get my life together again. However, I had no idea how to do that. No clue. So it was like, all right, what am I going to do? Well, I realized that I had to find out who I was. Who was I outside of all of the labels that I had put on myself all my life? I was a daughter, and then I was a wife, and then I was a mother. Then I was divorced from my first husband, and I was a failure. So, but then I had to move on. Well, then I met David, and I was a wife again, and then I was a grandmother. But then I was a widow. Now, and I couldn't, okay, now what? I've got to do something. So that finding out who I was outside of the labels that I had put on myself became the first step of what has now morphed into my 5-point method to get your happy back. Because who are you? Who are you outside of everything else around you? Who are you? And what do you want? What do you want out of your life?
And that's a really interesting question. I mean, I went through that same stage too. I'd be curious because I just feel like we're living parallel lives here. Now, I wasn't divorced early on. But I was widowed at 52, and that same feeling of my friend, one of Lou's friends said to me after he died, "Who are you?" And I'm thinking, I don't know, because same thing. I was a daughter, a wife, a sister. All these things, the kid's mother, and now it's like, who are you? Because you're always described as, that's Christopher's mother or Lou's wife or something like that. Now it's Barbara Ellison. It's Debby Montgomery. Fortunately, now it's Debby Montgomery Johnson because there's another happy spot for me. But keep going on with the 5 points because that first one is really great. Find out who are you.
And we'll come back to that. Okay, so the second step, because we've been brought up with all of our teachers, with our family, with the family norms, with our personality. Now I know personalities and that kind of stuff. So what are all the limiting beliefs that are keeping us stuck in not knowing who we are, and to find freedom from those limiting beliefs? That, well, who am I to do something new? Who am I to become an entrepreneur? I'm a mother. How can I start a business? All of those things, and those limiting beliefs for men, lots of times men, it's that they are so caught up in what they do that that's the only thing that they can do. And how often, how many men, and not women, men and women, how many people do you know that are in a business because their family was in the business? Mm-hmm. Not because they want to be there, but they have that limiting belief that that's all they can do because that's what they've always done.
Yeah.
So finding freedom from those limiting beliefs, and I work with people to get past those, and I give them exercises and getting in touch with the voices in their head that are telling them all of these limiting beliefs. And so, because lots of times the voices in our head, one of the things I share with people is that 85% of the things that you think every day are repetitive, and 95% of them are negative. So we need to work on that. So that's exactly, and so we wonder why. And so right now we wonder why the happiness level is tanking, especially now in the world, and especially now with the COVID stuff that's going on. People are just, because they are isolated, now they feel like they're alone, that there's nobody around to talk to. And so now they're all of their own demons are coming to the surface, and they don't know how to handle them.
Yeah.
So I want to work with them to get in touch with those voices in their head, because some of your voices in your head are there for a purpose. That we need to listen to them. Absolutely. Right. But then the third step became, okay, so now you know who you are. You're kind of going along with getting rid of the voices in your head that are so negative and keeping you stuck. But then what's your purpose? Discovering your purpose. What are you here for? And that comes back to the what do you want? Mm-hmm. Finding what you want and then discovering your purpose. We all have a purpose here. And like for me, and so often for myself, when I was trying to find for years, let me tell you, trying to find my purpose, I kept thinking it had to be this big, huge, monumental endeavor. No. Once I realized that my purpose, there's three parts to my purpose. I serve God, I learn, and then I teach what I learn. Mm-hmm. It's that simple. And when we can get our purpose down to the very simple thing that we want to do, that just eases up the rest of your life because everything else falls into alignment with it. Mm-hmm. So then the fourth step of the 5-point method is to make a difference in the world. So there was me going along. What am I going to do to make a difference in the world? For me personally, as part of my own 5-point method, I was on step 4. What am I going to do to make a difference in the world? And then it was like a download in the middle of the night. Barbara, that's where your personality science training is going to come in. You need to work with parents and kids to get them so that, that parents, there's so many parents out there right now that are so worried about losing connection with their kids. And part of it is because they don't have time, because they're so worried about the first 3 things, because they're trying to make a living, they're trying to be, parents, but they're losing the connection with their kids. Mm-hmm. And it was like, oh, that's where my step 4 is now, to get the word out there that people do not have to struggle. My favorite saying is, you cannot do life on your own. You have to do it with the people around you. Yeah. So let's learn how to communicate with those people around you in the best way possible. And in fact, right now I'm in the process of developing a course, and it's going to be for parents to get in touch with their kids. And so if any of your audience would be willing to do market research with me, I would love that. To just do like a 15 or a 20-minute of parents that have teenagers, and just have a few questions to ask, and because I want to develop a course to do this and how to put personality into it so that they will have a blueprint of what they can do with their children. And so my step 5 is how to put because that's one of the things so often for myself, I've taken courses since, over the years, since 2012, I've been taking courses and getting my certifications and doing all my training, and several of them were like, okay, this is what you do, this is what you do, this is what you do, but they didn't share how to do it. So my step 5 is that I am going to work with people how to put everything that I'm telling them in the first 4 stages, how to put it into practice. But, okay, yeah, it's great for you to tell me that I need to know who I am, and that it's great for you to tell me to get rid of my limiting beliefs, and it's great for you to tell me to discover my purpose, and it's great that you're telling me to make a difference in the world, but how do I do that? Well, that's what the programs are that are going to be coming out of how to actually put that into practice.
So if people would like to work with you on that survey and getting those courses together too, and work with you in general, how can they get hold of you?
Oh, they can just email me, Barbara at movingonmovement.com, and in the subject line, put down that they heard it from here, because I want to give you kudos for thank you so much for having me. Or they can text to, I have a text, excuse me, I have a text number, and it's 815-345-2555, and they can put in their information and the same thing, that this is where you heard it from, and that to give me their name and their information, phone number, and then I will text them. I don't text them back. I call them back. I will call them back and get in touch with them, and then we can go from there. And they can either do market research with me, or if they want to be part of my new program that's going to be coming out, that's awesome. If they want to learn more about how to use personality science, that is an awesome thing too. In fact, right now, I will share with you, if somebody's interested, right now they've got a $1, and you get 30 days of using all the tools. So if somebody is interested in that, send me the text and say that you're interested in the $1, and I'll send you over the link for that.
I think that actually came in when I did my assessment. I think that came in as follow-on email. Okay, yeah, exactly. But if somebody hasn't cracked their code and they want to do that, or just crack their code, and then it shows up. Oh, yeah, it is absolutely phenomenal. And one of the things that I love about it, and I will share this one little thing, is the artificial intelligence. I use it absolutely every day, because when I am going to send, like if somebody texts me something or emails me something that, okay, yeah, I need to respond to this, I put what I'm going to say back into this artificial intelligence, and it'll tell me whether I have all 4 of the codes covered in my response. Really? It is so That's interesting, because so many times people misinterpret what you're writing, texting, emailing. If they're not seeing you in person and watching your face and listening to the inflections in your voice, that's interesting. We'll have to check that one out. I'll give you one example, and I'm not going to name names, but one of the people in my that I want to aspire to be. She's just very well known, and she's a personality trainer. Not a personality trainer, but she's a life coach, and she's a fairly famous person. Anyways, one day I said, I'm going to see what her code is. So I took some of the stuff that she had written and put it into the artificial intelligence, and it's like, oh, yeah, she's totally which is why I like her, because she is my code. So, but then I looked at some of her marketing material, and I went, oh, but she's missing the 2 outside ones. So the things that she's saying is not addressing what they want. And it was like, so one of these days I'm going to get up my nerve and write to her. To write to her and say, hey, you know what? This is what I do. And it's like, oh, brother. And that's talking about getting out of your comfort zone. So now that's something that when I get on, and as soon as I get I'm planning to have my course ready before the end of May. So as soon as I have my course up, that's going to be my very next thing, and you can hold me accountable for doing that. That I will,
connect with her and just say, hey, this is something that you might want to think about.
Well, it's very interesting, and I want to thank you for the 5 points and for the code information. I work with an organization in Southern Florida. Well, it's an international organization called SCARS, which is the Society for Citizens Against Relationship Scams, and we deal with a lot of women, primarily around the world, that have been scammed in some way, typically in an online romance or in a relationship scam. And I would be really curious to see if the gals that I've worked with took this test, what the predominant code would be. If that is something that we're susceptible because of the way we are. And I know that to be true, but I'd just be curious because I have Dr. Tim McGinnis. Tim is the founder of SCARS, is coming on in a minute. And Tim did his assessment, and we worked together. And it's so funny because it's almost opposite to mine, almost completely opposite to mine. Which is really probably good in a working relationship if you understand that that's the way you are. And we laugh about it, too, because there are times when, he'll do something and I'm like, why are you doing it that way? Or, you need to calm down a little bit like you did with your spouse. But I have remarried, and my husband, CJ, is so much more like me than Lou was in so many ways. And it's interesting starting over, in your mid-50s and 60s, that's a nice place to be. I didn't want the drama that I had when I was in my 20s.
Right,
and
exactly.
I'm going to have CJ do this little assessment too and see where he comes in. And
it is just so fun. And one of the things that so many of relationships, people get hung up on, how do I start a conversation? Hey, do the code. Let's see what your code is, and it automatically starts the conversation. You don't have to worry about starting the conversation because the code starts the conversation.
Absolutely.
And that's what makes it so and like one of the things too, and when you're in a family, but when you're in a business relationship, how often do businesses fail because the employees and the management team can't get along?
Right.
Oh, well, let's find out. And
that would be something. And teamwork, HR.
The HR people love it because, like, lots of times you'll have a team that doesn't have one of the codes, and then the team doesn't function as well as it could be.
Right.
So it's just a fun thing to do.
Well, that's cool. And we could talk forever. This is so much fun for me because my brain is just exploding with, my kids especially, who should take this and what should they do? And then I'm like, okay, Deb, you're not in control. But
everybody can do it.
Absolutely. So thank you so much. And everybody, you can reach Barbara. You can text her at 815-345-2555 and let her know that, that you'd like some information, or go to our Facebook pages. She's actually on Facebook. She's on LinkedIn. Look up Barbara Ellison. Well, I guess LinkedIn is Barbara Ellison. On Facebook, we'll post all this on the Stand Up Speak Up.
I'm hoping to be able to change my name back. That was so silly. I accidentally changed my name. and Facebook won't let me change it back.
Oh, what a problem. I've had that happen. But I want to bring Tim on for a minute. Tim's here, and we usually do what's new in the world of scams. But, Tim, this is right. Are you there?
I am here.
Oh, I'm thinking this is right up your line because, we were talking about manipulation and social engineering and techniques, and I'm thinking how many of the scammers are trained in these personality codes?
I don't think it's so much that they're trained, although they're extraordinarily intuitive.
They are.
So one of the things that studies of this nature, models of this nature point out is the predictable nature of human beings and different personality types. And that creates inherently vulnerability in broad spectrums of the population. It's one of the reasons why sales programs work, is because of the predictability of behaviors. And this is used extensively in something called social engineering, which is the foundational science in almost all forms of human persuasion. getting people to do what you want them to do, whether it's buy a product, look at a program, go to the movies, buy a car, participate in some activity, or, for that matter, send a total and complete stranger in Africa $1 million. This is all part and parcel of this science of social engineering that's been developed and evolved over the last 100 years to a very predictable science. It has its positive side and it has its extreme downside. Political hate is exploited extraordinarily by social engineering. The Nazis were absolute consummate experts in the use of propaganda and social engineering, and today's world of marketing does the same. Social media is one giant platform for social engineering. But more importantly, understanding the elements of your personality can be quite beneficial in developing countermeasures that you can employ in keeping yourself safe. We have very little time today, so essentially what I want to touch on is how a simple set of behavior changes can help overcome the tendency in your personality to be vulnerable to social engineering and other forms of active and passive manipulation that will get you in trouble. And it really comes down to something very, very simple. The National Center for Cybersecurity and Action Fraud in the United Kingdom call it Take 5. Here in the United States, we call it Stop, Think, Connect. What it really comes down to is a simple mechanism that when you see something online, regardless of what it is, whether it's a link in an email or it's a web page that is offering you something that might be too good to be true, or it's a stranger connecting with you in social media, Facebook, Messenger, whatever it may happen to be, rely on this simple mechanism. Don't act immediately. Look at it, walk away from it, step back from it, think about it. So in other words, stop before you act, think about it, and thinking about it may be more than just 5 seconds of impulse-driven decision-making. Step back, think about it, let time pass. Hours and overnight is even better. So if you've got an email that has a link that's asking you to act upon it, don't. Instead, investigate it. Use Google to find the company in question. If it's an email that contains status information on your Amazon order, then just go into Amazon and look at your order statuses rather than the impulse to click on that link. So after you've thought about it, then act upon it. Research it first. Think about it. Modify your behavior so that when something is put in front of you, the nice shiny bauble, the link, the request, whatever it happens to be, take a step back. Think about what you're doing and what the potential implications are. If a stranger is contacting you out of the blue, 99% of the time it's going to be a scammer. If you get an email with a link in it, always look at the email address it's coming from, and not the displayed email address, but hover over that email address or click on the email address in your email client to see exactly who it's coming from. Most email programs allow you to hover over the link to see what the actual underlying link is. If you don't recognize it, don't use it. It's that simple. This simple technique can overcome almost everyone's personality vulnerabilities and allow you to be able to take control. And that control usually, usually is about giving yourself time so that you're not making a spontaneous reaction, regardless of what it is. Same thing can be said about buying anything. Give yourself time to think about it before you make that impulse buy, that spontaneous buy, whether it's a new car, a new boyfriend or girlfriend, or relocating to another city. Every decision that we make in life benefits from taking a moment to make a slightly more dispassionate decision about the action that you're performing, so that regardless of what your personality type is, you can benefit from the knowledge that you gave it a moment, that you gave it 5, that you stopped, thought, and then you acted. And that's this week's scam moment from Scars.
Thanks, Tim. You know, I'm sitting here. I actually took a lot of notes during that 5 minutes. And the Stop, Think, Connect, I mean, it would have saved me $1 million. But just in the other day, I was thinking, I was watching a show. It was, I think, the My Pillow guy, and he's out there all the time. I'm thinking, I might not need, a new topper for my bed. Well, I look at the reviews. I, walk away. But the spontaneous person I was thinking about, Barbara was talking about, the spontaneous people would go, call that number right away, because people make things feel urgent, and you just want to jump, And sometimes we just need to stop, think, and connect, or take 5. I love that insight right there. Thank you so much. And Dr. Tim has been suffering a little from the virus, so we're wishing you best of health today, Dr. Tim.
Thank you. I'm at the end of my 2nd week of symptoms, so I'm coming out the other side. Mine was relatively mild, but it certainly jumped into pneumonia really fast.
Oh, well, thank you so much for coming on the show today, and we wish you best of health. And Barbara, dear, thank you so much from Chicago. Stay warm up there.
Yep.
I really appreciated you coming and sharing with us on how to get our happy back, and I really want people to connect with you. It's fun, and I'm going to send this assessment to all my kids. Can't wait.
It is so fun. It is so fun because then you have a fan. Then one of the things that I suggest to people is have everybody do it, and then have a family Zoom.
Perfect.
And it is so fun to hear some of the things that have come out of these family Zooms. Oh, that's why you're going to be crazy, and yeah.
Well, maybe I should do it with my brothers now, because we're finding as we get into our 60s, things that we did when we were younger and didn't tell anybody about. We're all talking and just laughing at what we did. So very, very interesting. So we're going to have to wrap up. This has been a great show. I thank you, everybody, for being here. This episode has been supported by BenfoComplete.com, a vitamin supplement that supports people with neuropathy. If you have any interest in that or know anybody with diabetes and neuropathy, please go to BenfoComplete.com. We want to thank everybody for listening to Stand Up and Speak Up. Be sure to join us each Thursday morning at 9 o'clock Eastern Time, and come back for our next edition next week. This week, find your power, stand up, speak up, and I love for the women to woman up. So have a great day, everybody. I certainly appreciate you being here, and we'll talk to you all next week. Bye now.